It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, live from the Colombia-Venezuela border. Our top story this evening. I am not guilty, I am an innocent man. Venezuela's ousted president, Nicolas Maduro, appears in court with his wife to answer charges of narco-terrorism. Maduro's journey to and from court captured in the full glare of cameras. He'll be held in a detention centre until the next hearing in March. In Venezuela itself, the country's Vice President, Delcy Rodriguez, is formally sworn in as the interim president.
Vengo con dolor.
I come with the pain for the kidnapping of the two heroes that are held hostage in the US.
Cuba, Mexico, Greenland, even here in Colombia, we'll examine where Donald Trump may strike next.
Also ahead on Sky News at 10 tonight, 2,500 jobs could be at risk with two high street names being put into administration. And Ruben Amorim is sacked as head coach of Manchester United after 14 months in charge. Plus, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages. That's coming up in our press preview from 10:30 right through to midnight.
Good evening. When he spoke, he was defiant. I am not guilty. I am a decent man. I am still the president of my country. The words of the captured Venezuelan leader, Nicolas Maduro, as he appeared in a New York court to answer narco-terrorism and weapons charges. Just 2 days after he and his wife were dramatically captured in Caracas, there were extraordinary scenes today as they were transferred to court together by road and helicopter in the full glare of the cameras. Tonight, amid heavy security, Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, have been taken back to a detention facility where they will be held until their next hearing on March the 17th. Our US correspondent, Martha Kellner, was in court for Maduro's arraignment and has this report.
What a difference 3 days makes. Nicolas Maduro, snatched from the opulence of his Venezuelan palace, now being frog-marched away from one of America's most notorious prisons. From president to defendant in one long weekend. Then a breakfast-time helicopter ride into Manhattan. But this is no pleasure tour for Maduro, heading to his first court hearing. Maduro is being held alongside his wife, former First Lady Celia Flores, seen here being removed from the helicopter after him. The world waiting to see the former Venezuelan president inside the US justice system. Maduro pleaded not guilty to charges including narco-terrorism and possessing machine guns and destructive devices. No cameras were allowed inside the courtroom, but I was in there a matter of meters from Nicolas Maduro, and it was incredibly dramatic. I heard him coming before I saw him, the jangle of his shackles as he came into the room, and he wished everyone a happy new year. He said it 3 or 4 times. He was then asked by the judge to confirm his identity, at which point Nicolas Maduro responded. He said, "I am President Nicolas Maduro Moros, President of the Republic of Venezuela. Here, kidnapped since January the 3rd, I was captured in my home in Caracas, Venezuela." The judge then interrupted him, saying, "There will be a time and a place to go into this. At this point, I only want to know one thing. Are you Nicolas Maduro Moros?" There was another astounding moment right at the end of this hearing as Maduro got up to walk out of the room. A gentleman in the public gallery stood up and addressed him directly. That man is Pedro Rojas, a Venezuelan in exile. He tells me he was imprisoned in the country in 2019 and now lives in the US. What did you say to Mr. Maduro? You stood up at the end of that hearing.
Okay, I speak English, I understand. So,
I told Nicolas Maduro Moros that he will pay, that the United States of America will bring him to justice, that starting today, 5th of January 2026, the great age of Venezuela begins.
He looked at you, didn't he, straight in the eyes. How did that feel?
So Nicolás Maduro me dijo que él era...
Nicolas Maduro told me that he was innocent and that he was a man of God. I told him that we're also men of God because we've never attacked the Venezuelan church, as he has done on numerous occasions.
God willing, he'll spend the rest of his days in prison.
Unite with them to fight against our common enemy.
Rival protests outside court reflecting the different views Venezuelans in America have about this US intervention. Some are jubilant.
Best day of my life. It's not only what I feel, it's all Venezuela feel. That people over there is no, they are no.
Are you worried what happens to Venezuela next? That there's not much of a plan?
Venezuela will be great. Venezuela will be great because America support Venezuela.
Others are cynical.
We know that the real reason that the U.S. wants to kidnap Maduro and orchestrate the next phase of regime change is for resources. It's for oil, it's for minerals. Nothing about it is for the freedom of the Venezuelan people.
After the hearing concluded, Maduro in a motorcade was taken back to prison. His next hearing set for March. The consequences of his capture are unknown.
And Martha joins me now. First of all, Martha, give us a sense of the atmosphere in court.
Incredibly tense and dramatic, Mark. I think, these first court appearances are often very procedural, they're short and they're bland. This was anything but. It was drama from start to finish. As I was saying there, I heard Nicolás Maduro before I saw him. I could hear the jangle of his ankle shackles as he was waiting to be brought into the room. He almost came in with a swagger, wishing everyone Happy New Year, staring very intently at various members of the public gallery. And this was a packed courtroom. There were around 50 journalists in there, a few dozen members of the public and a handful of officers from the Drug Enforcement Agency too. That's the body which has been leading the putting together of the criminal case against Nicolás Maduro. And almost every opportunity when the judge asked him to speak, to confirm his name, to confirm his plea, he took the opportunity to assert his innocence. He said, "I'm a decent man, I'm innocent of all the charges." And obviously at the end, that astounding moment where the public gallery, which had been completely silent, one individual stood up, he was wearing a suit, and he begins shouting at Mr. Maduro, and they had a row with Maduro staring right through this man. And that was the gentleman that I spoke to afterwards. He said he'd been moved to come down here and look Maduro in the eyes and tell him shame on him. We heard from him in the piece there. So an incredibly dramatic, tense day. I should also say that Nicolás Maduro's wife was in court. She is indicted too. She was sitting 2 seats away from him. And I could see on the top of her eye she had bruising. She was wearing a bandage too. Injuries that her defence lawyer says were sustained in the operation to remove them from Venezuela and from their presidential palace.
Right, and President Trump speaking to our partners to NBC in the last hour or so.
Yeah, we've been hearing from President Trump pretty much non-stop since this operation to capture Nicolás Maduro. He's just done an interview with Kristen Welker from NBC News. She spoke to him for around 20 minutes. He told her that the arraignment of Nicolás Maduro was an extraordinary moment in history, in his words. She then asked him if the US is at war with Venezuela, to which President Trump replied, "No, we're not. We're at war with people that sell drugs." President Trump also told her that this arraignment is great for the hemisphere, which I think gives some idea of what Donald Trump's worldview is now, because before this weekend, I'd rarely, if ever, heard him speaking about the hemisphere. But now it seems that he's referring to the US in those terms. That's how he sees the geopolitical landscape as having shifted over the past few days.
Yeah, definitely part of the US's new security strategy. Martha, thank you very much indeed. Well, Defiance was also projected in Venezuela's National Assembly today as the interim leader, Delcy Rodriguez, was sworn in. Nicolas Maduro's son, who is an MP, addressed the chamber, insisting Venezuelans weren't goods to be bought and sold. I've been getting a sense of the mood across the border. Still in place but not in power, Nicolas Maduro was overseeing Venezuela's National Assembly at the start of a new year, but not in a way he could ever have imagined.
En el cargo de presidenta encargada de la República Bolivariana de Venezuela. Felicitaciones.
This is the woman sworn in as the country's new leader. Delcy Rodriguez, a Maduro loyalist, is Trump's chosen one to lead Venezuela now. This empty chair belongs to Nicolas Maduro's wife, also, of course, in US custody. The son of the ousted leader was greeted with cheers from the chamber, calling for resistance to the United States.
We are being persecuted, but we're not some goods that can be sold or bought. We are Bolivarian revolutionaries, we are Chavistas, and we are here to defend Venezuela, to defend the peace of the country, to support our country in whatever needs to be done so that Venezuela can remain in peace.
The acting president must now decide if she is to toe the American line.
Vengo con dolor.
I come with sorrow over the kidnapping of two heroes we have as hostages in the United States of America. Let's swear as one country to move Venezuela forward in these terrible times of threat against the stability and peace of the nation. I swear.
Outside, Maduro's supporters gathered, defiantly demanding the return of Maduro to the capital. Demands for his release will fall on deaf ears in the White House, but Venezuelans are united in one thing: their feeling of humiliation.
We will continue here until they return it to us, until our President Nicolas Maduro and our First Lady Celia Flores return. On behalf of the Venezuelan people, President, we are waiting for you with open arms.
I'm not a sympathizer of Maduro, but neither am I with the opposition. Too bad they grabbed us all with our pants down. What happened to the defense? What happened to the militias? What happened? I've always said it, the militias are a laughingstock.
Colombia, where we are, and also now in Donald Trump's sights, has been reinforcing its border with Venezuela. There is nervousness here about what the American administration may do next. The demonstrations in Caracas right now are in support of Maduro. No sign of opposition protests in a city and a country still very much in the grip of the remnants of the Maduro regime. Let's go straight to Caracas, the capital of Venezuela, speak to Rosalie Hernandez. Thanks for being with us. And what did the Venezuelan people make of these images of the president or former president being led into court in handcuffs and ankle shackles?
Hi, Mark. Good evening. Well, right now, the Venezuelans are debating of what to feel about this situation, you know, because they can't believe it in the whole picture. They can't believe that Nicolas Maduro had finally left the country, but they right now the doubts are increasing, while in here they are living under great pressure because right now the whole day has been a quite aggressive situation around the city. They have deployed the paramilitary forces, so they think that the Chavistas are trying to defend their positions against the detention of Nicolas Maduro. So the Venezuelan people are the ones who are paying for these actions. So I think they are relieved, they are happy because Nicolas Maduro left the country, but the other side they are really worried because, as always, all the consequences of what happened internally are on the shoulders of the Venezuelans.
Right, and very briefly, is there nervousness about the future, or is there also hope?
No, and right now, the most feeling that you can take from the interviews that we were doing on the street were of the worries. They don't have much hope what is going to happen next week. For example, the few days they have been trouble to get some food, to get some medicine. All the metro stations were shut down. All the places where they can reach some power energy or where they can connect it with their loved ones outside the Venezuela, that was quite complicated. So I don't think they told me that they don't feel very hopeful what is coming next.
Rosalie, thank you very much indeed. Well, after sending in troops to capture the Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and pledging to run that country, it seems Donald Trump may not be done yet. He that further military action on the South American continent, including here in Colombia, which is to be the epicenter of the world's cocaine supply. And he's reiterated a desire for Greenland to be part of the United States. Here's our international correspondent, Alex Rossi.
Donald Trump's audacious military action in the skies above Venezuela has put the world on notice. This is a US president who continues to tear up the rule book of how the international system is run. And on Air Force One, he made clear Venezuela may only be the start.
We're in the business of having countries around us that are viable and successful, and where the oil is allowed to freely come out because that's good, it gets the prices down. That's good for our country.
The US president, it seems, with his navy still in the Caribbean, is signaling a return to 19th century gunboat diplomacy, a world in which the strong dominate the weak. In the Western Hemisphere, it means, according to Trump, that America has primacy. In this worldview, the White House has other countries in its sights, and the administration pumping out memes on social media that it's not a good time to disagree with the US. This was what Secretary of State Marco Rubio had to say about Cuba.
I don't think it's any mystery that we are not big fans of the Cuban regime, who, by the way, are the ones that were propping up Maduro.
Across the region, leaders are now asking alarmed questions about who might be next. Trump told reporters on Air Force One Colombia was run by a sick man who likes making cocaine and selling it to the United States. Mexico also doesn't escape. The US leader says drugs are pouring through the country and America is going to have to do something. And the semi-autonomous Danish territory, Greenland, was also highlighted. The US president has raised the prospect of annexation, citing its strategic location for defense and mineral wealth. At the United Nations, an institution built to prevent great power war, there was condemnation from countries that could be targeted.
Unilateral action is contrary to international law, endangers regional stability, increases insecurity and worsens the already complex conditions being faced by the civilian population.
The Danish Prime Minister also very concerned about where all this could be heading.
Firstly, I believe that the American president should be taken seriously when he says that he wants Greenland. But I also want to make it clear that if the United States chooses to attack another NATO country militarily, then everything stops.
With what's happened in Venezuela and the Trumpian worldview taking shape in dramatic fashion, it's clear the international system is heading in a new direction. What was taken for granted and was known as the rules-based order forged after the Second World War may now be returning to an era where might is right. Alex Rossi, Sky News.
Well, Keir Starmer has thrown his support behind Denmark's leader, who has urged Donald Trump to stop threatening to take over Greenland. In an interview with our political editor, Beth Rigby, the Prime Minister also refused to say whether America's attack on Venezuela broke international law.
Well, the most important thing in Venezuela
is a transition to democracy, a peaceful transition. Now, that was our position before the weekend. It remains our position. And in relation to the illegitimate president of Venezuela, there aren't going to be many tears shed. I do think the frame situation is complicated. It's even complicated today. And obviously the US will want to justify its actions. Well, the framework has to be international law. It's a complicated situation. The most important thing at the moment is that peaceful transition to democracy.
PM, France, Spain, Canada, Germany, as well as the UN Secretary General, have all said that the US has violated international law. Has the US violated international law?
Well, international law is really important. It's the framework, and it's for the US to set out its justifications for the actions that it's taken. But it is a complicated situation. It remains a complicated situation. The most important thing is stability and that peaceful transition to democracy. That's what matters to Venezuela above all else, and that was the position we took before the weekend. It's still our position now.
So you're not going to say whether you think they have or haven't, just to be clear?
I'm going to be clear that I believe in international law. I've long been an advocate for international law. I'm absolutely clear that is the framework that applies. Obviously, it'll be for the US to set out their justification in relation to the action that they have taken.
You don't want to call it out. Can you just reiterate then to our Danish allies that you would condemn Trump going into Greenland, just to be clear?
Well, let me be really clear about Greenland. The future of Greenland is for Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark. Denmark is a close European ally, a close NATO ally, and the future, therefore, has to be for Greenland, for the Kingdom of Denmark, and only for Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark, and we're absolutely clear about that.
The Danish Prime Minister's told Trump to stop the threats about Greenland. Do you agree with her?
Well, I'd stand with her, and she's right about the future of Greenland.
Well, our political correspondent, Amanda Acas, is in Downing Street. So, very clear on Greenland, Amanda, much less clear on Venezuela.
Well, yes, the Prime Minister was repeatedly asked whether he believed the US had breached international law with its actions in Venezuela, and he repeatedly and very pointedly declined to answer that directly, bearing in mind he's one of the country's foremost human rights lawyers, but clearly he's decided he doesn't believe it's in the UK's interest to risk provoking the anger of Donald Trump. Instead, what he gave was a fairly bland general defence of the importance of international law before saying it's for the US to set out its legal justification for its actions. What really matters is a peaceful transition to democracy in Venezuela. Now, this is very much the position we heard from Yvette Cooper, the Foreign Secretary, in the House of Commons earlier this afternoon as well. And she really seemed to be celebrating the downfall of Maduro, talking about electoral fraud, about allegations of arbitrary detention and torture, and saying that she's spoken to the exiled opposition leader as well as Marco Rubio, her counterpart in the US. And she did say that she had raised the importance of international law with him, but not whether or not she believed that that had been breached. Now, this is a position which has provoked quite a backlash, not just from political opponents of the Prime Minister and his government, but from within their own party. Earlier this evening, I was here on Whitehall, just outside the gates of Downing Street, and there was a really big protest in solidarity with Venezuela. Some 800 or so people in the freezing cold chanting, Starmer show some spine, no blood for oil, free Maduro. I did speak to one Venezuelan who was there, who was delighted about the downfall of Maduro, I have to say. But overall, the speakers addressing the rally, not just Jeremy Corbyn, the former Labour leader, of course, now with your party, but also a number of left-wing Labour MPs who called on Sir Keir Starmer to stand up to Donald Trump and his gangster politics, as they put it. Richard Bergen, one of them, has described the Prime Minister's response to all of this as shameful and appalling, quite extraordinary from a sitting Labour MP. And another more senior figure in the party, Emily Thornberry, chair of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, has said that it's not for the country that is accused of breaching international law to say why it hasn't done that, and it risks becoming a world where might is right. But the UK government, certainly at the moment, is sticking with its position of saying as little as possible.
Amanda, thank you very much indeed. And just finally, I should say there really is concern here in Colombia about what Donald Trump could do next. The fear is that he will feel emboldened about the success as he sees it, of the operation across the hills here in Venezuela. Anna, back to you in London.
Interesting times indeed. Mark, thank you very much indeed. Well, domestic matters now, and the high street chains, Claire's and the original factory shop are being put into administration, putting around 2,500 staff in the UK at risk of redundancy. Well, let's bring in Sky's Emma Birchley, who's here. So what is going wrong? What's the story here, Emma?
We all know that it is tough on the high streets, isn't it? So many big names have gone. People are changing their shopping habits. They're focusing online, looking for a deal. But then the operating costs for these stores are really high as well, whether it's wages, whether it's business rates, or even heating them. You know, we know that has been an issue for everyone. And then, of course, they're clawing things back after COVID. So here we're talking about two names, Claire's, used to be Claire's Accessories, jewellery, ear piercing, little toys, and then the original factory shop, which is discount department store, 300 stores in all, 2,500 jobs. Now, they had been struggling and they had restructured and then were bought in two separate deals by Maduro Capital last year. They now say administration is the only option, and it's partly because of the alarming drop in footfall, as they put it. You know, Christmas is crucial. There have been figures out that show on December the 23rd, which is the last full shopping day before Christmas, footfall was down over 13% year on year. This is hugely significant. There has been a statement from them. They've said this has been a very tough decision. We've worked intensively in an effort to save both businesses, having made last-ditch attempts to rescue them, but neither has a realistic possibility of trading profitably again. A combination of very weak consumer confidence, highly adverse government fiscal policies and continued cost inflation is causing many established and much-loved businesses to suffer badly. It's a simple fact that if retailers can't make money, they risk having to close, and jobs across the country are lost. It's also understood that the landlords have lost the patience. They want their stores back. And Sky understands that these stores will carry on trading while buyers are sought. But the reality is it's not looking good.
Emma, thank you. Now, Manchester United are looking for a new head coach, having sacked Ruben Amorim after just 14 months in charge. The 40-year-old's arrival at Old Trafford came with great hope and excitement following a highly rated period at Sporting Lisbon. But the results didn't come, and it seems a public rift with the owners spelt the end for the Portuguese's time at the club. Our sports correspondent, Rob Harris, has more.
It had become increasingly frosty between Ruben Amorim and Manchester United.
Good luck with everything, yeah? Thank you. Yeah, thank you, mate. Yeah. All the best.
Now he's been made to walk, looking more relaxed than he did in the job. Relieved of the pressure so clear after a draw at Leeds left them with 1 win in 5. Amorim erupted with an outburst against his bosses over wanting a bigger say on strengthening the squad.
I came here to be the manager of Manchester United, not to be the coach of Manchester United. It's going to be like this for 18 months or when the board decided to change.
Which they swiftly did, sacking the 40-year-old after just 14 months, announcing this morning. With Manchester United sitting 6th in the Premier League, the club's leadership has reluctantly made the decision that it is the right time to make a change. This will give the team the best opportunity of the highest possible Premier League finish. The club would like to thank Ruben for his contribution to the club and wishes him well for the future. That contribution? Losing a Europa League final, finishing 15th in the Premier League last season, and a humiliating cup upset against Minnows Grimsby, providing this defining image of his reign, looking out of ideas.
The club have to find a manager now who's got experience, who's willing to play fast, entertaining, attacking, aggressive football. Simple as that.
The public could see the tactical inflexibility and poor results, but there are also concerns here about Amorim's approach to the job in general. A meeting with the club's leadership on Friday apparently left the impression he was just too emotional and negative. But this also all raises questions about Sir Jim Ratcliffe's judgment too. This was his first managerial appointment since gaining day-to-day control of operations here, and it's proved to be a costly mistake. adding to the £90 million spent on payoffs, churning through 6 permanent managers since Sir Alex Ferguson retired in 2013, all unable to replicate his glory days.
I thought they may give him a little bit longer, I'll be honest. It kind of felt it was working and it wasn't something a bit inconsistent, so you can see why they've got rid. Was it a bit too early? Maybe.
I seen it coming, kind of, but I would have given him a bit more time. I think the system he's using doesn't work for the Premier League.
In terms of like a permanent manager, I've got no idea who that could even be at this point, because who can fix this? Like, they're never given the time to make any difference, so I don't know where we go from here, and it's really annoying.
For now, Darren Fletcher is in temporary charge. He knows United inside out, as a player winning every major trophy before moving into youth coaching and serving as technical director. Good grounding to avoid the same power battles that Ruben Amorim took on and lost. Rob Harris, Sky News, Old Trafford.
Now, new warnings have been issued for more wintry weather after snow cancelled flights and shut schools. Snow and ice is causing disruption across large parts of the country, with travel warnings on roads and railways, while one airport was forced to pause flights. Network Rail Scotland posted these pictures of a snowplough clearing the tracks, but warned heavy snowfall is limiting progress. Well, Liverpool's John Lennon Airport was forced to pause flights for several hours due to the extreme weather. Flights were delayed or cancelled as teams worked to clear snow and ice from the runway. Kevin arrived freezing, I think, tonight, didn't you? So still cold outside. That was Sky News at 10, though. Coming up, we will take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers and the press preview tonight, joined by Kevin Maguire from The Mirror and Claire Ellicott from The Mail. Lovely to see both of you. And among the stories we'll be discussing, this story on the front page of the Metro. Its headline, Who's Next? After Trump's Venezuela takeover. That and plenty more after the break.